What's an insignificant thing that triggers the shit out of you? Insignificant said, the difference between Hulu's show volume and its ad volume. I'm literally considering canceling it because of this. If you try to watch something to fall asleep to and you're just dozing off, hope to hell you're not watching Hulu because you're about to be hit with an air raid warning in 5 minutes. Pi said, security guard here, the amount of times I've seen people throw trash on the ground and drive away is astounding. EWW bitch goddammit toe said, people who don't have the social intelligence to recognize when it's time to stop talking as I'm inching farther and farther away to conclude this small talk conversation. Baron Wombat said, actors waving coffee cups around in scenes where they are supposed to be full. Drives me nuts. Fill them with water or even epoxy for the wait for crying out loud. Edit. Rewarding to see how many people have noticed the empty cup. A few TV and movie production people are in the thread explaining why the cups need to not be live coffee, but there are a number of great suggestions that seem simple and workable. Fingers crossed that either actors are able to fake it better, or the props can give proper heft without endangering the production. Panda 388 said, I never understood not just putting water in them. And they always put the cup down on the desk and you can hear them make the empty cup noise. They always take that first sip and practically upend the cup when a cup that was actually full of liquid would only need to be tipped slightly to drink from. Gay Alien Farmer said, when I was in college, I worked in a student union bowling alley. It was a pretty sweet gig, and most of the people, all students except for 3, were decent people overall. The one that will stick with me forever, though, was a guy named Wes, real name. Shout out to you, Wes, if you see this. He was the only person I've worked with in my entire life who had near-perfect spatial awareness. We worked as one. Our main duties during the evening were doing shoe rentals, checking out lanes, selling beers and other drinks, taking money, etc. It was hectic behind the counter for just 2 people on busy nights, but we worked in absolute harmony. We always knew where the other person was. We could toss shoes to each other the way pro basketball players do no-look passes. Never bumped into each other. Never split beers dodging each other. Working with Wes was the most oddly enjoyable job experience I've ever had. Every night was like an unrehearsed ballet that still went perfectly. Poem for your sprog said, giggle take my money I shy helpful 3 and 14 more we span in gentle circles there a moving groove of grace a dance, a waltz of rhythm fair, a swing in slender space. We whirled and twirled and tapped and tripped, we stepped in spirals small we swirled and slapped our feet and skipped, but didn't touch, at all. And when the dance at night would end, with final jumps and kicks I said farewell and watched my friend, and wished we touched our dicks. Fairfish off New Water said, my girlfriend is really bad with this. Our apartment has a narrow spot separating the kitchen and dining room which is her favorite place to stand. I finally said something and she was so embarrassed I felt bad about it. Hugs and Wishes said, my mother, while shopping, does this. No idea where she is or what she is blocking. Like going down an aisle, parking the cart on the right, then standing in the middle, looking at everything in the middle. She's got no concept that people are waiting for her to move. She also keeps her purse on the top of the cart, half open, with her phone sitting directly on top. Then she will put it down, leave the cart in the middle of the aisle on one side of a big section in Target, then fuck off 10 yards away. I move her cart and tuck her phone and keep an eye on everything. We just don't shop together often. It is a blooming miracle she's never had her phone or purse stolen. She can also walk into the same store she's been in hundreds of times in the same mall she's been in more times, walk back out, and not know what direction she's come from or where to go next. She's a hot mess. Wood said, you'll love this then. When staying away on my own a few years ago, I went down to breakfast, was taken to a table for 2 with a free newspaper on it and asked if I wanted coffee. All good so far. When the waiter left, I got up to get my breakfast from the buffet and when I got back to my table there was another man sat on the opposite side of my table eating breakfast. The whole room was empty apart from my table. The waiter appeared with my coffee and I thought there's no way I'm having this guy take my table and my coffee. If he thinks I'm just going to feel awkward and sit elsewhere then he can think again. So I sat down, smiled politely, said good morning, and poured myself a coffee. We then sat at a table for two opposite each other in silence while we both ate our breakfast. Every so often he'd look up and catch me staring, thinking WFT is this guy doing at my table. I finished my breakfast but determined not to rush off. Feeling uncomfortable at my own table, I dug in a little bit and asked if he would pass me the free newspaper he had put with his keys and wallet like it was his. This guy, seriously. Anyway, he finished quite quickly and then got up. I smiled and said goodbye and he left. I felt quite proud of not being forced off my own table as I'm quite socially awkward really, but it didn't matter as today I held my ground. As I was telling someone later that day what had happened, that some guy tried to steal my breakfast table, it dawned upon me that actually there was probably a much more likely explanation. There were two waiters working the breakfast room and that this man had likely been given my table first, put his paper down, and got up to get his breakfast. Meanwhile, the other waiter sticks me right up. I then realized that from his point of view, in a totally empty restaurant, I sat down at his table, drank his coffee, stared at him and then took his newspaper. All while smiling politely. At least I wasn't socially awkward though. Pending Sweet said, when I'm behind people who are walking just a bit slower, I'd have to jog, or at least power walk, to get past them, or I have to go at a really uncomfortable slow pace. These are also the people who end up impossible to pass because they're weaving all over the place or hogging the pavement. I get unreasonably, unacceptably frustrated and angry fast. Hardtomic A user Namia said, when I park far away from others in a nearly empty parking lot, between the lines, occupying exactly one space, and come out to find someone parked right next to my driver's side door. I didn't do anything to you, why did you decide to do that? There are over 50 empty spots. Habitat for Hannah said, I had this happen to me, except crawling in via the passenger side wasn't going to happen, tiny car, so I waited because I had no choice. When the lady came out, I got my Karen on and gave her a lecture about using the white lines as a guide where the car should end up when parked. I was 8.5 months pregnant, it was hot and I was over it. The lady was embarrassed but I didn't care. Still don't feel guilty. No application 8698 said, my mild is this and it is simultaneously utterly disgusting and infuriating. She does not stop talking the whole time, plus she also has very bad teeth, hasn't been to the dentist in decades, is very lax with brushing, and has various cavities and abscesses, so it is much like seeing, and hearing, a violent, fleshy, moist, cement mixer swilling all the food around and around while her lips barely touch. Feeling sick and furious to my core just thinking about it. She doesn't listen to any heavy hints, and will never change. My husband has to coerce me into inviting her for meals. She's a widow and very lonely, plus she lives next door, because he knows how hard it is for me to put up with. I'm not a patient person anyway, and I'm a mild germaphobe who is very squeamish as well, so we don't have her around here as often as she'd like. It's even worse if we go to her house for food, because her untrained dog whimpers and begs at the table the whole time, which she encourages by feeding her from her plate, plus she picks her up and pets her, and then doesn't wash her hands before dishing up the food. Ooh, erg. Strawberry 92 said, I used to have the same problem. Then I imagined what the DR would tell me to do, which is see an ent or even a speech-language pathologist. I babysat a kid who had SLP appointments to help her eat food better, lol. Then I imagined what I would be told to do at that appointment. So I paid attention to my tongue movements during swallowing. I noticed that I sort of scooped air with my tongue, and swallowed it along with whatever food or liquid if I was eating or drinking. It was tough, but I consistently worked on starting my swallowing movement from the back of my tongue throat as opposed to the front of my tongue. Keeping it flat on the roof of my mouth during swallowing, as opposed to scooping air to the back and down my esophagus. It helps to practice first passively before eating and drinking. Hope that makes sense helps you at all. KarmaGod 13,000 said, littering. It tells me so much about you right away and it's easily avoidable. As an inner-city school teacher, I can't explain how bad this problem is becoming. Calling off all the time. Doing it now and then is fine, but people who call off every week for 2 days screwing over their other employees really starts to irritate me. I know there are a lot of exceptions, but I feel like these people exploit those exceptions and people just seem to be like, okay, People who show up extremely late to plans. Bonus points if the plans are the late person's idea. I get the courteous 15 to 30 minutes late. Honestly, 30 minutes is way too late for me, but I'm forgiving enough. But after that though, not only are you being rude, but to me you're saying that your time is more valuable than mine, and that's just disrespectful. I am shocked at how many times people will be an hour or longer late to plans. It bugs me to death. I am my own dad once said. Seeing someone I work with giving little to no effort. I would go to work and dread being on the same shift as, let's call her Sarah. She was new, so I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Her job was to take food to the tables. That's it. Not to take orders or open tabs. She would open a tab and not charge them, move the tab and confuse me and the servers. And not to mention she would come in late. And when she did work, she did it with the most rank attitude. I never said anything out of the way mean to her. She gets huffy with anyone who asks her to speak up, I've noticed, even customers and management. So I had to ask her to speak up, and she got mad and walked away in front of me and management. She threw a hissy fit BC she had to go home cause we had too many working that day. She threw cups across the counter into the kitchen out of pure anger. And nobody can keep up with the lies she tells us. On top of that, she asked me, I'm a female, are you pregnant or are you just fat? I had to play it cool cause I needed the job, but I just want to say something nasty to get her back. I will accept any witty comebacks. Radiant.6320 said. Oddly specific, but my brother is in the bathroom 80% of the time we're home. We share one, and I am very low maintenance with my bathroom usage, but whenever I desperately need to get in there, he conveniently slips in as I'm walking down the hallway. He then proceeds to sit there for around an hour on his phone despite my desperate pleas for him to finish his 789th visit of the day. Screw you, Joshua, I have been constipated for 3 days. This is my one chance for relief, and there is no way your bowels are moving that quickly. Moth Monster Man 300 said. I mean, what did you expect from a company that bumps its prices every single quarter, and that has a turnover rate similar to fast food, that pays its people like fast food, treats them like fast food, and constantly moves internal goalposts to keep people from advancing or getting raises? I worked there for like 4 years because there was nothing else around but retail. Mayo, I agree. Fuck you, Panera Bread. I still have nightmares about that job. Doge Biscuits said. Drivers who don't use their directional blinkers in advance of their actions. If they were about to enter an intersection and I'm waiting to make a turn through a steady stream of oncoming traffic and then they just turn instead of going through the intersection, well done, they're turning. If they'd signaled their intentions even a second ahead of their turning, I could have proceeded, but instead I'm left sitting there until another break in oncoming traffic occurs. This can happen several times in a day, and I'm often left wondering why people are so selfish, or ignorant, or lazy, or just stupid. Usually New York plates, I've noticed. Harold Rich said. Pens with the tip out. My parents used to have a whole glass of them and literally every single one had the tip out. I really needed a pen one day when I had to write something down from what the other person told me on the phone. For the kids, we didn't have a notepad on our phones back then, when I was younger, and I was like, yeah, sure. Gimme a sec. Just gonna grab a pen real quick. Got back, didn't write. Oh, wait. Gotta get another one, didn't write as well. Oh come on, doesn't write. Had to get another one, and so on. I checked about 30 of those before I finally found one that barely wrote. That was such an embarrassing moment, and it haunts me to the day, to the point where I've developed an OCD that makes me click the pens of strangers back in whenever I see them lying around open. I have to say sorry for that every single time, and I'm tired of it, actually. Rotharoran said. I lived a very terrible 6 months in a town. I was a kid about 17. My mother and I got displaced due to some domestic issues. We rented out a house like 10 miles away. We eventually moved back home with my stepfather, and we went on our merry way. I vowed I would never go back to that town. I found myself trying to get home from a place I had never been, and I found myself passing through this town, came within a mile of this house we rented, and let me tell ya, I have never felt the dread and horror I felt before, nor since. Fuck, that was bad. I never truly understood triggers until then. PC 509 said. The whole I know you. I know what you're feeling. and come up with some weird diagnosis or you're mad, I know you. Or some crap. It fucks with your head so much after a while. No, I wasn't mad. I am now. No, not gay, trans, bi, whatever the fuck you think I am. I'm not confused. I'm not anything. I'm pretty damn confident in my sexuality and who I am. Sorry if that bugs you. Guys don't have to fear saying another dude is good looking. You don't have to fear saying a girl is good looking without others thinking you want to bang her. You can enjoy feminine things without wanting to be a chick. I want to learn how to crochet. Not gay, not a girl. Damn. Controlling, gaslighting, manipulative, playing the victim card all the time. Habitat for Hannah said, my granddad gets triggered by people who park in disability parking spots without the display. So my grandma needs these parks and without them she has to sit in the car. Some guy pulled up in his ute and granddad asked him to move. He swore at my granddad and told him to go back to his retirement home and drool into his porridge. Well, my late 80s granddad lost his temper and punched him straight in the jaw. My granddad used to be some sort of army boxing champion back in the day, so he knows how to throw a punch. Funnily enough, the guy moved his ute and never pressed charges about getting beaten up by an 80-year-old for being a jerk. Grandma was so annoyed. Orange Q said, as an Asian American, my family utilizes chopsticks as our main eating utensil. As such, we have a large variety of chopsticks, and they have different designs on them. Sometimes when my wife is in a hurry, she'll grab chopsticks that don't match and just use them to eat. And every time she does this, I imagine myself in a room with the respective lawyers as we go through our divorce procedure, because there's no way in hell I can live the rest of my life with a person who just doesn't care about using mismatched chopsticks to eat. Madam Cat said, "I'm my experience? Yeah, they can't. Not UFC, this is just my experience in general. I have handed people my ID and had them mess up the spelling of my last name incredibly frequently because they scheme it instead of reading it. I don't really blame them. My last name is very similar to that of a famous city, but with two of the letters in the middle of the word switched around. I've had it printed wrong on legal and medical documents and always have to sigh, pass it back to them, and wait another 10 minutes while they fix it. So to save both of our time and patience, I just spell it out and emphasize the correct spelling. And then about 25% of the time they ignore me and write it wrong anyway." AutoCretched said, "When the mechanisms built into packaging, like perforations to tear things open neatly, or fold-down tabs for reclosing things, resealable zippers to maintain freshness, or boxes designed to be their very own handy dispensers, caps that are tamper-evident, lids that lock into place, and things that fold away for easy storage. When these things, and things like them, just don't really work, like, at all. Infuriating." Throwaway02 said, "My dad has a quote, 'It seems like, the harder I work, the luckier I get.' Granted, he came from a family of trashy people and his siblings in their 40s still live in his mother's basement. He started working at a potash mine at age 13, left at 17, went to university while working nights, and his siblings disowned him briefly because, oh, so you think you're better than us. While he tried helping by buying them clothes, giving them money, referring them jobs. He eventually cut them off. But yeah, sometimes it's luck, but without hard work, opportunities are not just going to come flying at you." Fatty the Nunchuck said, "When weddings include any element that mocks marriage. I went to a wedding where the groom chose the Imperial March, Darth Vader's theme, as a recessional, and I have never wanted to punch someone in the throat so badly in my life. Photos of the groomsmen catching the groom sneaking out of the venue. Mostly an 80s stunt. Grooms being hauled to the altar in chains. Newly married couple smashing wedding cake into each other's faces. Makes me absolutely bitch crackers. Maybe I specifically get stabby when men mock marriage at weddings." Damane Man said, "When people turn a less than 1-minute conversation into a 10-15-minute lecture. I once worked with a nurse that was incapable of answering a simple yes or no question. Seriously, you could ask her the time and she'd respond with, 'Well, if you looked at the clock you can clearly see what time it is. You see that little hand there? Yeah. That's the hour hand. It tells you what hour it is. And that little one there tells the minutes. There are 24 hours in a day. And 60 minutes for every hour. That means, There's plenty of time for you to check instead of wasting my time answering your question. So you see that little hand is on the 1. And that big hand is on the 12. That means, it's 1 o'clock. Mom, you could have saved us all the lecture by just saying 1. That whoopie food said. Leaf blowers. I hate them so much. I can't even describe how much I hate them. Someday I'm going to buy enough land so even if my neighbor has a leaf blower I can't hear it. Leaf blowers epitomize the rudest and most nature-phobic aspects of humanity. Leaf blower psychology, fuck you, I'm going to abuse the space we share regardless of externalities, is why we have climate change. I am so disappointed in us every time I hear a goddamned leaf blower. Unending Gloom said. Ctrl-Alt-Del doesn't work. You press the key combination and select Task Manager, or Ctrl-ESC, but often Task Manager then shows up hidden under the frozen program you were trying to close. This is often the case for games which are full screen and are often the programs that crash for me. If you do manage to access Task Manager, you try to end the frozen programs process but it doesn't do anything. Often I just Ctrl-Alt-Del, then select Restart and try to cancel the restart after Windows has closed the frozen program but before my computer has shut down. This infuriates me because it proves Windows can close the program if it really wants. Task Manager just doesn't do it. I hate it. We need a key combination that actually forces Windows to close whatever program is in focus without needing to go through menus or Task Manager. Hell, give me a key combination that does whatever the shutdown process is doing to close all open programs. It's Jero said. People not using blinkers or turn signals anymore. Lot of it is bad drivers or BMW owners, the rest have care that just warn you when switching lanes. People don't even look anymore or use signals. They'll just start to get over and if the lane change proximity warning thing sounds they'll just go back to original lane. TVS and or shows where the voices are not as loud as the rest of the sound. Also, ads being louder than the TV show, they do it on purpose but I think it's illegal now. YouTube videos with an ad like every 2 minutes. I will turn my volume down on my phone and literally turn the phone away from me so as to not give the advertisement my time or give them satisfaction of the ad. Ads in general can get fucked. But I get why they do it. Still, fuck too many ads in a video. Bad drivers in general. Especially when it seems like everyone around you is going exactly the speed limit or less. Especially like these two fuckers I was behind yesterday. One car in each lane ahead of me, 2-lane road. Both right next to each other, and both going the same speed. For like miles and miles. I was of course talking shit to them both in my car, like they can hear me lol. But seriously. One's a fast lane passing lane, the other's the slow lane. Come on people, get with the program. It's Jero said. People who loudly chew their food or eat something really crunchy and take their time with it. Sometimes making sounds of satisfaction during eating like mmmmhmm. Crunch crunch crunch, mmmmhmm. I want so bad to slap that food out of their hand. Like slap that shit across the room. Mouth breathers. Yeah, lots of little shit annoys me. I probably need to just say F it and not even worry about these things but damn they trigger me at a deep level when I should really take some good advice. Mama told me don't sweat the small stuff. It truly doesn't matter in the big picture and wasting my time and energy on it solves nothing in the end. At least until I build an automatic slap the shit out of ya device that is a drone hand or is installed lots of places like dinner tables, couches, BMWs, etc. Remote controlled of course.